August 13th, 1704, 2:30 in the afternoon. Matthew Bishop is 23 years old. Private soldier in His Majesty's Regiment of Howe, muddy red coat caked with 3 months of dirt and dried blood. Trembling hands gripping his brown Bess musket, and ahead of him, across 400 yards of open field, the fortified village of Blenheim. He knows he's going to die. 800 men just received orders to attack that village, barricades blocking every street. 1,000 French musketeers entrenched behind overturned wagons and furniture, artillery pieces positioned at every corner. Orders came straight from high command, from Lord Cutts himself. Take Blenheim at any cost, any cost. Matthew looks sideways. His brother Thomas, 19 years old, stands there in the second rank, pale as death, breathing too fast. His hands shake worse than Matthew's. 3 months ago, they were farmers. Now they're about to charge into hell. Sergeant James Crawford, 40 years old with a face like weathered leather, walks down the line, checking each man. His voice cuts through the thunder of distant artillery. "Fix bayonets!" The sound of 800 blades being locked into place echoes across the field, a sound like death itself clicking into position. Matthew's fingers fumble with his bayonet. The 17-inch blade slides into the locking ring beneath his musket barrel. Clicks. Locked. He closes his eyes for just a second. Thinks of home. The small farm in Wiltshire. 40 acres of barley and sheep. The thatched cottage where he grew up. His mother standing at the door, watching them leave last spring. Tears streaming down her face. She begged them not to go. Begged them to stay. But there was no food. The harvest had failed 2 years running, and the King's recruiting sergeant promised 6 pence a day, plus shoes, plus meals. It seemed like a fortune then. Now Matthew would give every penny to be back in that cottage. Safe. Alive. But he's here instead, 1,000 miles from home, standing in the Danube Valley in Bavaria, about to run straight into the mouth of death. The drum begins to beat. Slow. Rhythmic. The sound that means advance. Crawford's voice booms. "Regiment, shoulder arms!" 800 muskets rise to 800 shoulders as one. "Forward, march!" Matthew's feet move, one step, then another. The line advances. But to understand how Matthew Bishop arrived at this moment, on this field, facing this death, we need to go back. 3 months back, to the beginning of the most brutal military campaign in British history, the March to the Danube, May 20th, 1704. Matthew and Thomas Bishop stand in formation on a muddy field near Bedburg in the United Provinces. It's raining, cold spring rain that soaks through their new red coats and makes their boots squelch in the mud. They're part of an army. 21,000 men, 16,000 British soldiers like them. The rest, German and Dutch mercenaries. Nobody knows where they're going. The officers won't say. Just mysterious orders: prepare to march, check your equipment, draw rations for 5 days. Matthew stands next to his brother, checking his gear for the 3rd time. Brown Bess musket. 46 inches long, weighs 13 pounds. Bayonet, 17 inches of steel. Cartridge box with 60 paper cartridges, each containing powder and a lead ball. Canteen. Knapsack with 1 extra shirt, 1 pair of reserve. Shoes, a week's worth of dried bread and salt pork. In total, he's carrying almost 45 pounds of equipment, and he'll carry it all day, every day, for as long as they march. Thomas, standing beside him, adjusts his own pack. He's thinner than Matthew, always has been, weaker. When they were boys, Matthew did most of the heavy farm work. Thomas helped their mother in the house, in the garden. Now Thomas is a soldier, expected to march and fight like any man. "Matt," Thomas says quietly, voice barely audible over the rain. "Where do you think we're going?" Matthew shrugs, water dripping from his tricorn hat. South. That's all I know. I heard some men talking. They said Moselle. We're going to fight the French on the Moselle River. Maybe. Or maybe we're going to hell and back. Who knows what the Duke has planned? The Duke. John Churchill, 1st Duke of Marlborough, Captain General of the Allied Forces, the man who will lead them wherever they're going. Thomas shifts his weight. His boots are too big. Standard army issue. They don't fit anyone properly. Do you think we'll see real combat? Matthew looks at his younger brother, sees the fear behind the question. Probably. We're soldiers, Tom. That's what soldiers do. I know. I never thought it would be real, you know? Matthew does know. In the village, when they signed up with the recruiting sergeant back in February, it all seemed like an adventure. March with the army, see foreign lands. Come. Home with money and stories. Now the reality is setting in. They're actually going to war. People will try to kill them. They might die. Probably will die. Sergeant Crawford appears, walking down the ranks, inspecting men. He's been a soldier for 15 years. Fought in Ireland during the Williamite War. Fought in Flanders during the 9 Years' War. His face is marked with smallpox scars, and a French musket ball took off his left ear back in '93. He's seen more men die than most have, seen live. Crawford stops in front of Thomas, looks him up and down, sees the fear. What's your name, boy? Thomas Bishop, Sergeant. First campaign? Yes, Sergeant. Crawford nods. Advice. Stop thinking so much. Thinking gets you killed. When we march, you march. When we fight, you fight. When I give an order, you obey instantly. No questions, no hesitation. That's how you survive. Understand? Yes, Sergeant. Crawford moves on down the line. Thomas exhales slowly. Matthew leans closer. He's right, you know. Just follow orders. Don't think. We'll be fine. Thomas nods but doesn't look convinced. May 21st. The march begins. They wake at 2 in the morning. Total darkness. Freezing cold despite it being May. The corporals walk through the camp, kicking men awake. Up! Up! Form ranks! Matthew and Thomas scramble out of their tent, roll their blankets, pack their gear, form up in the pre-dawn darkness with their regiment. At 3 o'clock, the entire army begins to move. 21,000 men marching south through the darkness. The column stretches for miles, infantry in the center, cavalry on the flanks, supply wagons bringing up the rear. They march until 6 in the morning, then halt, make camp, cook breakfast, rest. Sounds simple. It's torture. The first day, Matthew's feet hurt within an hour. The army-issue boots are stiff leather, barely broken in. Every step rubs. By the time they stop at 6, both his feet are covered in blisters. Thomas has it. Worse. His 2 big boots have rubbed raw wounds on both heels. He can barely walk. Matthew has to help him to their tent. That night, Matthew lies in the tent, every muscle screaming, feet throbbing, back aching from the weight of the pack. Thomas is crying softly, trying to hide it, but Matthew hears. Tomorrow will be easier, Matthew lies. You'll see. It's not easier. Day 2, they march again. Same routine. Wake at 2. March in darkness. 3 hours of hell. Then rest. Thomas falls twice. Matthew helps him up both times. On day 3, Thomas can barely stand. His feet are bloody. His legs shake. I can't do this, Thomas whispers during their rest period. I can't, Matt. You have to. I can't. My feet. God, Matt, they hurt so much. Crawford appears, looks down at Thomas's bloody feet. His face shows no sympathy, just cold practicality. If you can't march, you stay behind. And if you stay behind, you get no rations. The army doesn't feed useless mouths. So either you march or you starve. Your choice, boy. Thomas swallows, nods. I'll march, Sergeant. Damn right you will. That night, Matthew helps Thomas clean and bandage his feet with strips torn from an old shirt. It's not much, but it's something. "Why are we doing this?" Thomas asks quietly. "Why are we here?" Matthew doesn't have a good answer. "Because we're soldiers now. We do what we're told." "Is it worth it? 6 pence a day?" Matthew looks at his brother, at his bloody feet, his exhausted face. "No. But we're here anyway. First weekends. They've crossed the Meuse River, then the Rhine. The boots that seemed so new a week ago are already falling apart, seams splitting, soles wearing through. But Marlborough planned for this. At the next supply depot, there are new boots waiting, fresh rations, even beer. The men begin to talk. This Duke knows what he's doing. He actually cares about supplies. Maybe we'll survive this after all. Second week. May turns to June. The rain stops. The sun comes out. Now they march in heat, brutal, unforgiving heat. Men start dropping in formation. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke. Matthew sees a soldier from the Leicester Regiment. 3 men ahead of him suddenly stumble, fall to his knees, convulse. Foam comes from his mouth, eyes roll back. He's dead in 5 minutes, just like that, dead from the heat. Crawford walks the line constantly. "Drink water, small sips, don't gulp, and for God's sake, don't take off your coats no matter how hot you are." Matthew obeys, drinks carefully from his canteen, keeps his red coat on despite the sweltering heat. Thomas drinks too fast, can't help himself. 5 minutes later, he's vomiting beside the road. Crawford watches, shakes his head. "Idiot, I just told you. Small sips." But there's something almost like pity in the sergeant's voice. He hands Thomas his own canteen. "Here, rinse your mouth, spit it out, then 1 tiny sip. That's all." Thomas does. His hands shake as he takes the canteen. Third week. They cross the main river near Kassel, then the Neckar. Still heading south. Always south. "Where the hell are we going?" the men ask constantly. At every rest stop, around every campfire. Nobody knows. The officers say nothing. Rumors spread like wildfire. "We're going to Bavaria." "No, Austria." "I heard we're marching to Italy." Someone said Vienna. Matthew doesn't care where they're going. He just wants to get there, to stop marching. His feet are a constant agony, even with new boots, even with careful bandaging. Every step hurts. But he keeps marching, because that's what soldiers do. 4th week, June 10th. They arrive at a village called Mondelsheim, and something happens. Marlborough meets with another general, a foreigner, Austrian, someone says. No, Italian. No, he's Prince Eugene of Savoy. The rumors explode after that. "We're going to the Danube," an old veteran says around the campfire that night, "to save Vienna from the French and Bavarians." Thomas's eyes go wide. "Vienna? How far is that?" "Another 300 miles, Matthew says quietly. "At least." 300? Thomas stares into the fire. "We've already marched 300? And we have to march 300 more?" Nobody answers. Because it's true. They're not even halfway. Thomas looks at Matthew. "We're going to die there, aren't we?" Matthew wants to lie. To say no, they'll be fine, but he can't. "Maybe," he says, "but maybe not. We've made it this far. So far, we've just been walking and hurting and being miserable, but we haven't fought anyone yet. When we get to wherever we're going, that's when people start dying." Matthew has no response, because his brother is right. June 22nd, 1704. They arrive at Elchingen, a town on the Danube River. 5 weeks of marching, 300 miles crossed. Of the 21,000 men who left Bedburg, only 19,000 are still here. 1,500 are gone, dead from disease, from heat, from exhaustion. Some deserted and were never found. Some just collapsed and died on the road. Matthew and Thomas Bishop are still here, still alive, barely. Matthew's feet are destroyed, layers of blisters on top of old blisters. His army boots, already his third pair, are disintegrating again. When he takes them off at night, blood and pus seep out. Thomas is worse, much worse. Somewhere during the 4th week, he developed dysentery. He's lost maybe 15 pounds. His face is hollow, bones showing through skin. He can barely keep food down. "You need to see the surgeon," Matthew says one evening. "No." Thomas shakes his head weakly. "If I go to the hospital wagon, they'll leave me behind when the army moves. I'm not staying alone in some German village." "Tom, you're sick, really sick." "I know, but I'm staying with you. We made a promise. Remember? We go home together." Matthew remembers. The night before they left Wiltshire, they promised their mother. "Both of us come home or neither of us." "All right," Matthew says. "We stay together." But he's worried. Thomas is fading, getting weaker every day. June 23rd, the Allied armies unite. Marlborough's force joins with Prince Eugene's Austrians and the Margrave of Baden's Germans. Suddenly, there are 110,000 soldiers camped around the Danube. Matthew has never seen so many men in one place. The camp stretches for miles. Thousands of tents, hundreds of campfires at night. The noise is constant. Shouting, orders, horses, wagons. It's impressive and terrifying, because this many men don't gather unless there's going to be a massive battle. Before we continue with Matthew's story, a quick request. If you're enjoying this different perspective on the Battle of Blenheim, told from the viewpoint of the men who actually fought and bled, leave a like on this video. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make more content like this. And if you want more history, told in an engaging human way, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I upload videos like this every single week. All right? Good. Now let's get back to Matthew and Thomas in Bavaria, because things are about to get very, very bad. July 1st, 1704. Orders arrive. They're attacking a Bavarian fortress, a place called the Schellenberg. It sits on a hill above the town of Donauwörth, commanding the bridge over the Danube. "Why do we need that town?" Thomas asks weakly. He's lying in their tent, too exhausted to sit up. Crawford, checking his musket nearby, answers. "Donauwörth controls the only bridge for 50 miles. Take it. We can cross the Danube with the whole army and really invade Bavaria. Leave it, we're stuck on this side of the river and the whole campaign fails." "And the Bavarians are just going to let us take it?" Matthew asks. Crawford laughs, a harsh, bitter sound. "No, lad. They're going to fight like cornered rats, which means we're going to have to dig them out with bayonets, which means a lot of us are going to die tomorrow." He says it so casually, like he's talking about the weather. Thomas goes even paler. "Tomorrow?" "Aye. Marlborough wants it done fast. Frontal assault at dawn." "Frontal assault?" Matthew's stomach sinks. Even he knows what that means. Charge straight at fortified defenses, maximum casualties. "That's right. So get some sleep. You'll need it." But Matthew doesn't sleep. Neither does Thomas. They just lie therein, the darkness, listening to the camp. Men talking quietly, some praying, some crying, waiting for dawn and death. July 2nd, 1704. The Battle of Schellenberg. Matthew Bishop experiences real combat for the first time in his life. And it's nothing, absolutely nothing like he imagined. They wake at 3 in the morning, form up in darkness. The entire assault force, 22,000 men, marches toward Schellenberg Hill in silence. Matthew is in the second wave with Thomas. They can see the hill in the pre-dawn light. It's not particularly high, maybe 300 feet, but it's steep, and at the top, Bavarian and French soldiers have built trenches, earthworks, palisades, 6,000 defenders against 22,000 attackers. Should be easy, right? At 5 in the morning, the first wave attacks, 5,000 English, Scottish, and German troops. They march up the hill in perfect formation, drums beating, colors flying. Matthew watches from below, watches them climb, closer to the fortress, closer. Then the Bavarian artillery opens fire. Cannonballs tear through the advancing lines. Each ball cuts down multiple men. Matthew sees one ball hit a company of Highlanders. 5 men simply vanish in a spray of blood and torn flesh. The formation keeps climbing, drummers still beating. Then the muskets start. 1,000 Bavarian and French soldiers firing in volleys. The sound is like continuous thunder, and the front ranks of the attacking force are mowed down like grass. Men fall by the dozens, by the hundreds. They reach the palisade, try to tear down the wooden stakes with their bare hands. Bavarian soldiers stab down at them with spears and bayonets. More musket volleys. Point-blank range. The attack breaks. The survivors run back down the hill. Of 5,000 men, maybe 3,000 come back. Dear God, Thomas whispers beside Matthew. Matthew can't speak. He just watched 2,000 men die in 30 minutes. Crawford appears, walking down the line of the second wave. His face is grim. "Second wave! Fix bayonets!" Matthew's hand shakes so badly he almost drops his bayonet. He fumbles it into the locking ring, clicks it into place. "Listen to me," Crawford shouts. "The first wave broke because they hesitated. We will not hesitate. When the order comes, you charge. You don't stop. You don't slow down. You reach that palisade and you tear it down. Clear?" "Yes, Sergeant," 800 voices shout back. Matthew doesn't feel ready. Thomas looks like he might faint. But they're soldiers now, and soldiers attack when ordered. "Second wave, forward!" They march. Up the hill. Over the ground where the first wave advanced. The grass is red with blood. Bodies everywhere. English, Scottish, German. Most aren't dead yet. They're screaming, begging for help, for water, for their mothers. Matthew steps over a Scottish soldier missing both legs. The man grabs at Matthew's ankle, trying to speak through the blood, filling his mouth. Matthew keeps walking. Has to. If he stops, Crawford will shoot him for cowardice. 100 yards from the palisade. The Bavarian artillery adjusts aim, fires. A cannonball hits the man directly to Matthew's right. The soldier's head disappears in a red mist. His body remains standing for a second before collapsing. Thomas vomits while walking. Doesn't stop walking. Just vomits and keeps moving. 50 yards. Musket volleys start. The Bavarians are firing as fast as they can. Reload. 3 shots per minute. A wall of lead balls. Men drop all around Matthew. In front, behind. He's screaming now. Not words, just raw animal sound. They reach the palisade. Matthew drops his musket, grabs a wooden stake, pulls. It doesn't budge. It's driven 6 feet into the ground. Thomas appears beside him. Together they pull. A Bavarian soldier on the other side stabs his bayonet through the gap. The blade cuts across Matthew's shoulder. Pain lances through him. Matthew and Thomas pull harder. The stake moves, just an inch, but it moves. More soldiers join them, 5 men, 10, 15. The stake comes loose, falls. A gap opens in the palisade. British and German soldiers pour through, into the Bavarian fortifications. The fighting becomes hand-to-hand, bayonets and swords, desperate, brutal, savage. Matthew picks up his musket. A Bavarian soldier runs at him. Young, maybe 18, terrified. Matthew doesn't think, just reacts, pulls the trigger. His musket was still, loaded from before. The shot hits the Bavarian in the chest. The young soldier's eyes go wide. He coughs. Blood sprays from his mouth. He falls forward. Dead. Matthew Bishop just killed someone, another human being. He's 23 years old, and he just ended someone's life. He expects to feel something. Horror, guilt, remorse. He feels nothing, just numb. The battle rages for 6 more hours, 6 hours of hell. Eventually, British and German reinforcements pour over the palisade. The Bavarians break, run, the fortress falls, but the cost is staggering. 5,400 Allied casualties, dead and wounded. Over a quarter of the attacking force. Matthew and Thomas survive. Thomas took a bayonet cut on his left arm, not deep. It'll heal. Matthew has the slash across his shoulder and a musket ball graze on his right thigh he didn't even notice until later. But they're alive. That night, the survivors sit around campfires. Nobody speaks. They just stare at the flames, seeing things that can't be unseen, screaming faces, blood, body parts, the smell of death. Thomas is shaking, can't stop, not from cold, from shock. Matthew puts his arm around his brother's shoulders. "We made it, Tom. We survived." Thomas looks at him with hollow eyes. "Did we? Because I don't feel alive." Matthew understands. Because he feels the same way. July passes like a nightmare. Marlborough's army advances into Bavaria. The orders are clear. Make Bavaria scream. Force the elector to surrender, so they burn. Farms, villages, crops, everything. Matthew hates it. He's a farmer's son. Watching crops burn, livestock slaughtered, families fleeing with everything they own, it makes him sick. But orders are orders. Thomas gets worse during this time. The dysentery that started during the march intensifies. He's weak, can barely march, can barely fight. "You need to see a surgeon," Matthew insists one night in late July. "They'll declare me unfit for duty. They'll leave me behind." "Tom, you can barely stand." "I'm staying with you." Thomas's voice is weak but firm. "We promised, Mother. Together." Matthew wants to argue, but he knows his brother is right. If Thomas goes to the hospital wagons, they'll be separated. And separation in a foreign land during a war means one or both of them will die alone. All right, we stay together. August arrives. News spreads through the camp like wildfire. A French army under Marshal Tallard has crossed the Rhine. They're marching to link up with the Bavarians. Marlborough and Prince Eugene are moving to intercept them. There's going to be a battle, a big one. Crawford says it one evening while cleaning his musket. "This is it, lads. The big one we've been marching toward. Everything comes down to this." "How do you know?" Matthew asks. Crawford looks at him. "I've been a soldier for 15 years, boy. I know the signs. The generals are nervous. Officers are double-checking supplies. Ammunition is being distributed. We're about to fight the biggest battle any of us will ever see." He pauses, looks at Thomas, who's lying down, too weak to sit up. "Are you ready, lad?" Crawford asks Thomas. Thomas tries to smile. Can't quite manage it. "No, Sergeant, I'm not ready." "Nobody ever is," Crawford says quietly. "But you'll fight anyway, because that's what soldiers do. We fight when we're ready. We fight when we're not. We fight because that's what we are." August 12th, 1704. The Allied army, 56,000 strong, marches to meet the enemy. They're heading to a place called Höchstadt, near a village, a small village on the banks of a stream called the Nabel. The village's name is Blenheim. That evening, Matthew and Thomas sit together outside their tent, both cleaning their muskets, both checking their cartridge boxes, 60 rounds each. Around them, the entire army prepares. 22,000 other British soldiers, Austrians, Germans, Dutch, all preparing. The mood is strange, quiet. Men know what's coming tomorrow. Thomas breaks the silence. "Matt." "Yeah?" "If something happens to me tomorrow, nothing's going to happen." "Matt, please, just listen." Thomas's voice cracks. "If something happens, tell Mother I wasn't afraid, okay? Tell her I was brave. Matthew looks at his younger brother, 19 years old, sick, exhausted, terrified out of his mind. I will, Matthew says. His throat is tight. But you're going to tell her yourself, because we're both going home, remember? Together. Thomas tries to smile. Promise? Matthew can't promise that. They both know it. Tomorrow, one or both of them might die. Probably will die. But Matthew nods anyway. I promise. That night, almost nobody sleeps. Matthew lies in his tent listening to the camp. Thousands of men, thousands of hearts beating, thousands wondering if they'll see another sunset. Thomas tosses and turns, feverish from the dysentery. Matthew holds his brother's hand in the darkness, like they did when they were children, when Thomas was afraid of the dark. I'm here, Matthew whispers. I'm not leaving you. I know, Thomas whispers back. I'm scared, Matt. Me too. They don't sleep. Just wait. For dawn, for battle, for death. August 13th, 1704. Dawn. The Allied army wakes at 2 in the morning. Total darkness. Cold, despite it being August. They form up in 9 massive columns. 56,000 men arranging themselves in the pre-dawn blackness. The noise is incredible. Officers shouting orders, men checking equipment, horses stamping. Matthew and Thomas stand in formation with Howe's regiment. 800 men, one of 51 infantry battalions in the Allied army. Around them, the darkness is complete. Matthew can barely see 5 feet ahead. Fog rolls in from the Danube, making visibility even worse. At 6 o'clock, the fog begins to lift, and Matthew sees the enemy for the first time. Across the Nebel, stream on the far bank, 60,000 French and Bavarian soldiers are arranged in battle formation. Their battle lines stretch for miles. White-coated French infantry, gray-coated Bavarians, cavalry wings on the flanks, artillery positioned every few hundred yards. It's the largest army Matthew has ever seen, larger than anything he imagined armies could be, and his army has to fight them, has to beat them, or they all die here. At 7 o'clock, the Allied artillery opens fire. 80. Cannons roaring as one. The sound is like the end of the world. Thunder that shakes the ground. Smoke rising in massive clouds. The French and Bavarian artillery fires back. 120 cannons answering. Cannonballs tear through the Allied ranks. Matthew sees a ball hit 3 men in his company. They simply cease to exist. 1 second, 3 soldiers standing there. Next second, nothing but red mist and pieces. Thomas is shaking violently, not from cold, from sheer terror. Matthew grabs his shoulder. Stay with me. Whatever happens today, stay with me. Understand? Thomas can't speak, just nods. Noon approaches. The artillery duel continues, both sides firing as fast as crews can reload. Men dying, screaming, but no infantry assault yet. Just artillery, just death from a distance. Then at 12:30, new orders come down the line. Lord Kutz's brigade will assault the village of Blenheim. Take it. Hold it. Break the French right flank. Lord Kutz's brigade includes Howe's regiment. 800 men, against 1,000 French musketeers entrenched in fortified positions with artillery support. It's a suicide mission. Every man knows it. Crawford walks down the line one last time, checking each soldier, making sure everyone is ready. When he reaches Matthew and Thomas, he stops. Remember your training, Crawford says. His voice is steady, calm, like this is just another drill. Load fast, fire fast, stay in formation no matter what happens. Clear? Yes, Sergeant, Matthew says. Crawford looks at Thomas, sees the sickness, the fear, the weakness. You, Crawford says to Thomas, stay in the second line. Let the stronger men lead the assault. It's the closest thing to mercy Crawford knows how to give. A chance for Thomas to survive a few more seconds. Thomas shakes his head. I stay with my brother, Sergeant. Crawford's scarred, weathered face softens. Just for 1 second. Just a flicker of humanity in those hard eyes. "Then God help you both," he says quietly. He moves on. 1 o'clock. The drums begin to beat, the signal to advance. "Regiment, shoulder arms!" 800 muskets rise to 800 shoulders as one. The movement is perfect, synchronized. After 3 months of hell, these men are soldiers now. "Fix bayonets!" 800 blades lock into place. The sound echoes across the battlefield. Matthew's hands are surprisingly steady now. The fear is still there, but so is something else. Resignation, acceptance, whatever. Happens in the next hour happens. He can't control it, can only face it. "Forward, march!" They advance. Slowly at first, measured steps, keeping perfect formation. Drums beating the cadence, 200 yards from Blenheim. The French artillery sees them coming. Adjusts aim, fires. The first cannonball hits the center of Howe's regiment, cuts down 6 men in a spray of blood and shattered bone. The line closes ranks, keeps marching. Another ball, another 5 dead. Close ranks, keep marching. Matthew's heart is pounding so hard he thinks it might burst from his chest. His mouth is completely dry, hands slick with sweat on his musket. Every instinct in his body screams run, run away, flee. But he doesn't run. He marches, 1 foot in front of the other, Thomas beside him, Crawford ahead, 150 yards, within musket range now. The French open fire, 1,000 muskets firing in rolling volleys. The sound is continuous thunder. The smoke rises in a gray wall. And British. Soldiers start dying by the dozens. The front rank of Howe's regiment simply disintegrates under that first volley. 40 men fall in 3 seconds. "Second rank, forward!" Matthew is now in the front rank. Thomas still beside him. They step over the bodies of their comrades, men they've marched with for 3 months, men they've eaten with, shared tents with. Some are dead, some are screaming, clutching at wounds. Matthew keeps walking. Has to. If he stops, he dies. 100 yards. More. Volleys. More death. Matthew sees Lieutenant Andrews, 25 years old, take a musket ball through the throat. Blood sprays in a fountain. Andrews clutches at his neck, eyes wide with shock and terror. He falls. 50 yards. The barricades are clearly visible now. Overturned wagons, furniture from houses, sandbags, and behind them French soldiers, loading, aiming, firing. "Charge!" Crawford's voice cuts through the chaos. The drums switch to the rapid beating that means run. Matthew runs, screaming. Not words, not a battle cry, just raw primal sound. He's sprinting straight toward death, and he knows it, but he can't stop. Won't stop. They hit the barricades like a human wave crashing against rocks. The fighting becomes chaos. Men stabbing with bayonets through gaps in the barricades. French soldiers firing down from second-story windows. Hand-to-hand combat over the furniture and wagons. Men dying everywhere. Matthew fires his musket point-blank into a French soldier's chest. The man screams, falls backward. Matthew starts to reload. His hands are shaking so badly he drops his first cartridge, fumbles for another, tears it open with his teeth, pours powder down the barrel, rams the ball, pours priming powder, cocks the hammer. A French soldier appears above the barricade, aims his musket at Matthew's face. Thomas tackles the Frenchman. They both go down on the other side of the barricade. Matthew hears the struggle. Then 3 quick thuds. Thomas stabbing with his bayonet. Thomas stands up. His face is splattered with blood. Not his own. The Frenchman's. "I got him," Thomas says. He sounds surprised. "I got him, Matt." "Good. Now..." The rest of Matthew's sentence is cut off by an explosion. A French grenade lands 5 feet away, the fuse burning. The world erupts in fire and sound and pain. The blast throws both brothers backward. Matthew's ears are ringing. Can't hear anything but a high-pitched whine. His vision is blurred, blood in his eyes. His own? Someone else's? He sits up, checks himself. Cuts on his face and arms, bruises, but nothing serious. The grenade was far enough away. Thomas? His brother is 10 feet away, lying on his back, not moving. Thomas! Matthew crawls to him. Every movement hurts. His whole body feels like one massive bruise, but he reaches Thomas, turns him over. There's blood. So much blood, coming from Thomas's stomach, where a piece of shrapnel the size of a finger tore through his coat, through his shirt, through his flesh. No, 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 no! Matthew presses his hands against the wound, tries to stop the bleeding, but there's too much blood. It's pouring out between his fingers, warm and sticky and wrong. Medic! Matthew screams. Medic! I need help here! Nobody comes. There are hundreds of wounded. Not enough medics. Too much chaos. Thomas's eyes open. He looks up at Matthew, tries to speak. Blood comes from his mouth instead of words. Don't talk, Matthew says. Tears are streaming down. His face now. Don't talk. Just hold on. The surgeon will come. He'll fix you. You'll be fine. Thomas knows better. He grabs Matthew's wrist. His grip is weak, getting weaker. Tell, Thomas whispers. The word is barely audible. Tell Mother. You're going to tell her yourself. You hear me? You're going to be fine. We're going home together. We promised. Thomas tries to smile. Can't quite manage it. Blood bubbles from his lips. His hand falls away from Matthew's wrist, goes limp. His eyes are still open, still looking at Matthew. But there's nothing behind them anymore. Thomas Bishop died at 1:47 in the afternoon on August 13th, 1704. He was 19 years old. He died in a foreign country, in a war he barely understood, for a cause that meant nothing to him. He died afraid, and in pain, and far from home. Matthew Bishop holds his brother's body and screams, a sound of pure anguish that somehow cuts through even the chaos of battle. His little brother is dead. This story is getting even more intense from here. If you're still with me, if you want more people to know what soldiers like Matthew and Thomas experienced, share this video. Send it to someone who cares about real history, about the human cost of these grand battles we read about in textbooks. And leave a comment. What would you do in Matthew's position? How do you keep going after losing everything? I genuinely want to know what you think. Now let's see what Matthew does next, because his story isn't over. Time stops meaning anything for Matthew Bishop. He doesn't know how long he kneels there, holding his brother's body. Could be minutes, could be hours. The battle rages around him, men fighting and dying. Orders being shouted, muskets firing, cannons booming, but Matthew doesn't hear any of it. He's in a void, a place beyond sound, beyond feeling. His brother is dead. Someone grabs his shoulder, shakes him roughly. Matthew looks up. It's Sergeant Crawford. His face is covered in powder burns and blood. Bishop, on your feet, now! Matthew doesn't move. Can't move. I said on your feet, soldier. Crawford grabs Matthew by the collar, hauls him upright with surprising strength, shoves Matthew's musket into his hands. Your brother is gone, Crawford says. His voice is hard, but not unkind, just stating fact. You can mourn him later. Right now, you're still alive, and we need every man fighting. Load your weapon. Get back in line. That's an order. I can't, Matthew's voice breaks. You can, and you will, because if we don't take this village, 1,000 more brothers die today. Now move. Something in Crawford's voice, in his eyes, cuts through the fog in Matthew's mind. His hands move automatically, muscle memory from 3 months of constant drill, loading, priming, the motions he's done 10,000 times. Around him, Howe's regiment is being pushed back. The French defense is too strong, too many barricades, too many defenders, too much firepower. The assault is failing. Men are dying for nothing. Matthew looks at the village through tear-blurred eyes, at the French soldiers firing from windows and rooftops, at the massive barricades blocking every street. And then he sees something the desperate chaos of battle had prevented anyone else from noticing. On the eastern edge of Blenheim, there's a gap, a narrow alley between two buildings, barely wide enough for one man, and it's undefended. The French have concentrated all their forces on the main approaches. Nobody's watching that alley. If someone could get through there, they could attack from inside the village. Open the barricades from within. Let the main assault succeed. It's suicide. One man alone, behind enemy lines, against hundreds. But it might work. Might. Matthew looks down at Thomas's body one last time, at his brother's face, peaceful now in death. "I'm sorry," Matthew whispers. "I promised we'd go home together. I'm sorry I couldn't keep that promise." Then he runs. Not away from the battle. Toward it. Toward the gap he spotted. He sprints along the edge of the fighting. French soldiers see him. Fire at him. Miss. A musket ball whizzes past his head. So close he feels the wind of it. He keeps running. Another ball hits the ground at his feet, kicks up dirt, still running. He reaches the alley, squeezes through. It's barely wide enough. The walls scrape both his shoulders, but he makes it. He's inside. Blenheim now, behind French lines. The sounds of battle are muffled here. He can hear French officers shouting orders, soldiers reloading, the wounded screaming. Matthew moves quickly but quietly, through narrow alleys, between houses. His heart is pounding, adrenaline flooding his system. He reaches the main barricade, the same barricade that's been stopping the British assault for the past hour. But now he's looking at it from the other side, unguarded. Everyone is facing outward. The entire barricade is held in place by a single large wagon. Remove that wagon, the whole structure collapses. Matthew sets down his musket, grabs the wagon, pulls with all his strength. It doesn't move. It's too heavy, loaded with stones and dirt to make it more stable. He pulls harder, muscles straining, back screaming, shoulders burning. The wagon shifts. Just an inch, but it moves. A French soldier rounds the corner, sees Matthew. His eyes go wide. He raises his musket. Matthew doesn't think, just reacts. Drops the wagon, grabs his own musket, fires from the hip. The ball hits the Frenchman square in the chest. He falls backward. But the shot alerts other French soldiers. Matthew can hear them coming, shouting, running. He drops his musket. No time to reload. Grabs the wagon with both hands. Pulls with everything he has, with all the strength left in his exhausted, battered body. The wagon moves. 1 foot, 2 feet. French soldiers appear around the corner, 5 of them, all aiming, muskets at him. Matthew gives one final desperate heave. The wagon tips over, crashes to the ground, and the entire barricade collapses with it. Furniture and sandbags tumbling down. A gap opens, wide enough for dozens of men. And through that gap, British and German soldiers pour in. The assault that was failing suddenly succeeds. The French soldiers who were about to shoot Matthew suddenly have enemies behind and in front of them. They're caught in a crossfire. Within seconds, they're overwhelmed. Matthew collapses against a wall, can't stand anymore, gasping for breath. His entire body is shaking. A French musket ball grazed his left arm during his run through the alley. He didn't even notice until now. Blood is soaking his sleeve, but he did it. He opened the barricade. The village will fall. Sergeant Crawford finds him a few minutes later, stares at him in disbelief. "That was you? You opened the barricade from inside?" Matthew nods. Can't speak, doesn't have the energy. Crawford extends his hand, pulls Matthew to his feet. "Well done, lad," Crawford says quietly. There's something in his voice Matthew's never heard before. Respect. "You might have just won us this battle. Well done." The Battle of Blenheim continues for hours after that. But the fall of Blenheim village is the turning point. With their right flank collapsed, the French line begins to crumble. By mid-afternoon, 24 French battalions surrender, 12,000 men, including Marshal, Tallard himself, wounded and captured. By evening, the French and Bavarian army is destroyed. Fleeing in disarray, the Allies have won, a decisive, crushing victory, one that will change the course of the entire war. Vienna is saved. The French are pushed back. Marlborough becomes the most famous general in Europe. But Matthew Bishop cares about none of that. That night, as the sun sets over the Danube Valley, Matthew buries his brother in a shallow grave outside the village of Blenheim. There's no coffin, no marker, just dirt. He says no words over the grave, no prayers. He's forgotten how to pray. All those Sunday services back in Wiltshire seem like another lifetime now. He just kneels there in the darkness beside the mound of freshly turned earth and weeps. The morning after the battle, officers come through the camp, taking names, counting casualties, sorting out who lived and who died. From the 800 men of Howe's regiment who assaulted Blenheim village, only 340 survived. 460 are dead or missing. Matthew Bishop is one of the survivors. Thomas Bishop is counted among the dead. Someone must have told the officers what Matthew did, about opening the barricade from inside, because a week later, he's called before Lord Cutts himself. Lord Cutts is tall, imposing, with a reputation as a fierce fighter. They call him Salamander, because he loves to be in the hottest part of every battle. Private Bishop, Lord Cutts, says, "I understand you showed exceptional courage at Blenheim. You flanked the French defenses and opened the main barricade from within. Is this true?" Matthew stands at attention. "Yes, my lord." "Remarkable initiative. Truly remarkable. You'll be promoted to corporal immediately, and you'll receive an extra 2 months' pay as a reward. Well done, soldier." 2 months' pay, 20 shillings, plus a promotion. Matthew stares at Lord Cutts. "That's it, my lord?" Lord Cutts frowns. "That's it? You're being rewarded, Private. Many men receive nothing at all. You should consider yourself fortunate." "My brother died, sir. Thomas Bishop. He was 19 years old." "Many brothers died that day, soldier. That's the nature of war. War is hell. But you helped us win. You should be proud of your contribution." Proud. Matthew wants to laugh, or scream, or both. Instead, he just salutes. "Yes, my lord. Thank you, my lord." He leaves. 20 shillings richer. A corporal now instead of a private. His brother is still dead. Corporal Matthew Bishop serves for 3 more years after Blenheim. He fights at the Battle of Ramillies in 1706, at Oudenarde in 1708, Malplaquet in 1709. He survives them all, somehow. Through skill or luck or sheer stubbornness, he survives every battle, every siege, every skirmish. In 1710, he's finally discharged, honorably, with his pay and a letter of recommendation. He returns to England, to Wiltshire, to the farm. After 6 years away, his mother is 63 years old now. Her hair is completely gray, her back bent from years of work. She's standing in the doorway when Matthew walks up the road. She stares at him. For a long moment, she doesn't recognize him. He's aged 20 years and 6. His face is scarred, his eyes hollow. His hair is starting to gray, even though he's only 29. "Matthew?" she finally says, uncertain. "Yes, mother, it's me." She runs to him, embraces him, weeping. Thank God you're home." She pulls back, looks behind him. "Where's Thomas?" The question Matthew has been dreading since the moment he left Bavaria. "He died, mother, at Blenheim, in 1704. She goes pale. "How?" "A grenade, during the assault on the village. It was quick. He didn't suffer." Another lie. Thomas suffered terribly, died slowly, bleeding out over several minutes. But Matthew won't tell his mother that. Did Her voice breaks. Was he brave? Matthew thinks about his brother. Sick, exhausted, terrified. But marching anyway, fighting anyway, dying anyway. Yes, Matthew says. He was very brave. You would have been proud of him. His mother weeps. Matthew holds her, but he feels nothing. That part of him died in Bavaria 6 years ago. Matthew Bishop lives another 40 years after returning to Wiltshire. He marries a local girl in 1712. They have 4 children. He works, the farm, lives a quiet, normal life. But he never speaks about the war, never tells anyone what he saw, what he did, what he lost. His children grow up knowing their father was a soldier once, but he never tells them any stories, never shows them his scars, never mentions a brother who died before they were born. On cold nights, his wife sometimes wakes to find him sitting by the window, staring out at nothing. When she asks what's wrong, he just says nothing and comes back to bed. But she knows. She sees the haunted look in his eyes, the way he flinches at loud noises, the nightmares that wake him screaming. He's home, but part of him is still in Bavaria, still kneeling beside a shallow grave, still holding his brother's body. In 1744, Matthew Bishop dies quietly in his sleep. He's 63 years old, the same age his mother was when he came home. His family buries him in the churchyard, next to his wife, who died 2 years earlier. The vicar says nice things about him, talks about his service to the crown, his sacrifice. Nobody mentions Thomas. Nobody even knows Thomas existed. Matthew never spoke of him. History remembers the Battle of Blenheim as the Duke of Marlborough's great victory, the battle that saved Vienna from the French, the battle that turned the tide of the War of Spanish Succession, the battle that established Britain as a true military power. The history books talk about Marlborough's brilliant strategy, Prince Eugene's cavalry charges, the surrender of Marshal Tallard, the collapse of the French right flank. They don't talk about Matthew Bishop. They don't talk about Thomas Bishop. They don't talk about the 800 men of Howe's regiment who assaulted Blenheim village, or the 340 who survived, or the 460 who didn't. They don't talk about the cost, the real cost, not in strategic terms or geopolitical consequences, but in human terms. Brothers who died holding each other, fathers who never came home, sons buried in foreign soil, widows and orphans left behind. That's the cost nobody talks about. This was the story of Matthew Bishop, private soldier, later corporal. A man who did something extraordinary on one terrible day in August 1704. He didn't do it for glory, didn't do it for king or country, didn't even do it because he was ordered to. He did it because in that moment, with his brother dead and everything lost, doing something felt better than doing nothing. Taking action felt better than accepting defeat. That's what real courage is. Not the absence of fear, not stupidity or recklessness, but doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified, even when you've lost everything, even when you know you'll probably die. That's what Matthew Bishop did, and thousands like him throughout history. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Seriously, thank you for taking the time to hear this story, to remember men like Matthew and Thomas Bishop, men whose names aren't in any history books, but whose courage and sacrifice shaped the world we live in. Leave a comment and tell me, did you know about the human stories behind Blenheim? What do you think about how history remembers generals but forgets common soldiers? I really want to hear your thoughts. Next week, I'm telling another forgotten story, this time from the Battle of Waterloo, about a French drummer boy named Pierre Durand. He was 14 years old. And what he did in the final minutes of that battle, as Napoleon's army collapsed around him, will absolutely blow your mind. Until then, remember this. Behind every famous battle in history, there were thousands of Matthew Bishops, men whose names we'll never know, Men who did extraordinary things, men who suffered and died for causes they barely understood. They deserve to be remembered too. History isn't just about the famous generals and kings, it's about the ordinary people who lived through extraordinary times, who fought, who suffered, who survived, who died. Their stories matter. They deserve to be told, and I'll keep telling them. Until next time.